What's good and welcome in. You're watching NBA Now by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Chase Senior. Hope all of you out there are having a phenomenal week. NBA playoffs in full session with the Eastern Conference Finals and Western Conference Finals still going on with a couple of really good series as the Dallas Mavericks were able to extend the Western Conference Finals against the Golden State Warriors with a pivotal Game 4 win. And then in the Eastern Conference Finals, deadlocked at 2-2, but it is never too early to take a look ahead to the NBA offseason, especially NBA free agency. So without further ado, let's dive into the latest NBA news and rumors. And we start off with DeAndre Ayton. Is he going to leave the desert? Is he going to leave the Phoenix Suns? A couple of teams expected to be vying for his services in NBA free agency as he looks to secure the bag because he wasn't able to get the bag last summer from the team that drafted him number 1 overall back a couple years ago. Now, Phoenix balked at signing Ayton last year to a 5-year, $170 million contract, and according to Jake Fisher of Bleacher Report, the Suns quietly gauged his trade value in February, including a deal for Domantas Sabonis. And according to some additional reporting, Monty Williams, NBA Coach of the Year, isn't the biggest fan of Ayton because he thinks that he should be further along in his development and isn't the player that they thought he was going to be at this point after getting drafted number 1 overall. Now, as far as DeAndre Ayton, the player, goes, he's very, very good. Is he great? That's the big looming question, and if that's not the case, is he worth great money? Another team in the NBA is certainly going to be willing to pay him great money, but is it going to be the Phoenix Suns to keep this tack and core with Chris Paul as well as Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton? This past year, Ayton, 17 points per game, 10 rebounds, gave you nearly a block per night. He was able to convert on about 63% of his field goals, but I think in big moments, especially in that second round series against the Dallas Mavericks, too often, DeAndre Ayton, given his physical dominance, his play would wane and he would disappear in some of the bigger moments of the basketball games, and that's a big problem if you're looking to give him a max contract. Now, Jake Fisher on the dynamic between Monty Williams and DeAndre Ayton said this: the recent Williams dynamic may simply echo consistent word dating back to the NBA trade deadline from league sources with knowledge of the situation that Ayton is not particularly a favorite of Phoenix's head coach. Williams has purportedly griped about Ayton's waning focus, which some people contacted by Bleacher Report said has often been reflected by the ebbs of his playing time. And that would back up why he's such an inconsistent player, because he does go through ebbs and flows throughout the course of games and playoff series, and the sample size there is certainly lengthy. When you look at possible landing spots for DeAndre Ayton, as I talked about, going to be a couple of teams who are going to be interested in him because he's a really good defender who has switchable ability and can give you something offensively and defensively. He just needs to be a little bit more consistent. Can he? Yes. Is he still a young player? There's no doubt about that, but there are some concerns about his effort and his waning focus. Atlanta Hawks, Detroit Pistons, Portland Trail Blazers, Dallas Mavericks, and Charlotte Hornets, 5 teams, in my opinion, that make a lot of sense. And when you look at a team like the Dallas Mavericks, yes, they were able to extend that Western Conference playoff series against the Golden State Warriors, but defensively, that is a team that does concern me. So I think throughout this offseason, the Mavericks, which were a very good defensive team this past year, are going to look to fortify the front line of their defense, because once guards and wings are able to get past that first and second level of that Mavericks defense, they don't really have that prototypical rim protector and a guy who can run the floor and be that dynamic threat like a DeAndre Ayton or like a Rudy Gobert. So I think the Mavericks could be interested in looking at possibly signing DeAndre Ayton in NBA free agency, or maybe making a trade for Rudy Gobert. That's something to keep an eye out for as we progress throughout the NBA offseason over the next couple of weeks and months. Now, I just broke down 5 teams that I think make a lot of sense for DeAndre Ayton. In your opinion, in your estimation, what is the best destination for DeAndre Ayton? I want to hear from all of you in the comment section right now as I field your answers for the best destination for Ayton. From Ayton to another really good player in Zach Lavine. His decision looming in NBA free agency, set to be an unrestricted free agent. And what's interesting is that if he were to go back to the Chicago Bulls, they can offer him a 5-year deal worth max money. If he were to go to another team, they can only offer him a 4-year contract. Now, up to this point, there have been a couple of teams interested in Zach Lavine, who over the last couple of years has been one of the best scoring wings in the NBA. And he's been ripped off in times for his defense, but going back to the Olympic Games last summer in Tokyo, I thought Zach Lavine actually played pretty well defensively. Now, injuries are a little bit of a concern, especially because he tore his ACL back a couple years ago at the Minnesota Timberwolves and is undergoing yet another knee surgery this offseason. But he's uber athletic, he's super bouncy, he's a 3-level scorer who's really a threat to put the biscuit in the basket as soon as he crosses half court. Rumored teams in on Lavine as of now, and these are firm teams that are reportedly showing interest. Portland Trailblazers, the team up with Damian Lillard, as they're in win-now mode, because if you have Dame, you're trying to win right now. The Atlanta Hawks are one of the deeper teams in the NBA. I think that would make sense from a sign-and-trade perspective. That way, Lavine can sign a 5-year deal with the Bulls, get sent to Atlanta, and then the Chicago Bulls can receive some really good players back in return in the San Antonio Spurs. Can you imagine Zach Lavine teaming up with DeJounte Murray and a couple of the other intriguing young pieces on that Spurs team? That could make a lot of sense as well. We talk about the offensive acumen for Lavine. He's been getting it done for a really long time, and I have to give him credit because since coming out of UCLA, he's really grown his offensive arsenal in a pretty impressive fashion. When he was coming out of college, he was looked at as a dunker and a high flyer, a guy who had untapped potential, but the key term there, untapped potential. He's been able to tap into that potential and become a well-rounded offensive player. Nearly 24 points per game in 2018-19. It goes up to 25.5 the following year. 2020-2021, the best scoring output season of his career at 27 points per game, and the shooting splits are always very respectable, hovering between about 46, 45, and 50% from the field, and about 37+% from long range. But that 2020-2021 season was miraculous. Shooting splits of nearly 51% and 42% from downtown. If you get that type of player, and the player that Zach Lavine showed when he was healthy last year, you're getting a very, very dangerous offensive threat. Now, I want to test you with this question, Hoopers, because Zach Lavine, he's an all-star caliber player, but is he elite or is he just solid? I want to hear from you, and it's your opportunity to sound off and voice your opinions and your evaluations on Lavine right now in the comment section. E for elite, S for solid. What do you think about Lavine? You let me know. Now, you can watch NBA Now and all of our Chat Sports content on Rumble as well as on YouTube. And right now, we have a great competition going on, just like the NBA playoffs, between NBA Now, Golden State Warriors today, and the Los Angeles Lakers report. As you can see to my right, everybody's so closely tied in terms of followers and subscribers. Let's up our game here on NBA Now just a bit. Let's catch up to Warriors today because this is our flagship NBA program. You see the link at the bottom of your screen. It's rumble.com/NBA Now. Plug in that link in a separate browser as this video rolls. Follow us on NBA Now for more exclusive content. And if you're watching us live, we're going live exclusively on Rumble right after our YouTube show wraps up. To Bradley Beal now. Trade rumors have been hovering around Bradley Beal in the nation's capital seemingly over the last couple of years. But are those trade rumors going to get silenced? Because is Bradley Beal going to stay in Washington, D.C.? He recently said, quote, "It's fair to say that he's leaning toward re-signing with the Washington Wizards. With the Wiz, he can sign a 5-year max contract worth around $246 million. And these trade rumors have been simmering for years. In the lead-up to the NBA trade deadline, Bill Simmons had reported that Joel Embiid wanted Bradley Beal over James Harden. Then he had to undergo that wrist surgery, which threw a wrench into the plans. And other really good teams in the NBA have checked in on Bradley Beal over time because they realize this guy is a special player who 2 years ago, before a down year this past year, finished second in the NBA scoring title behind Steph Curry. That's how good he is when he's at the top of his game. Washington Post, on the most recent report on Bradley Beal, he is still leaning towards signing a multi-year deal with Washington worth roughly $250 million in July. And in the meantime, he's focused on his rehab after having his cast removed in late April following season-ending wrist surgery in February. Speaking of that injury, Beal was asked about it. He said he's coming along nicely. Now, who is Bradley Beal? And if he goes back to the Wiz, what are they getting? And if he gets traded to another team or decides to walk and he goes elsewhere, what is that squad going to get? In my opinion, a guy who can score from anywhere on the floor, is athletic and bouncy enough to get a shot off from anywhere on the deck, and is very, very special when everything is operating. Now, he could certainly use a little bit more help with the Washington Wizards, but as a one-man show, he's been that. A one-man show. 2019 to 2021, 117 games played. That's a large sample size there. Averaged nearly 31 points per game on 47 and 35% shooting splits. But this past year, he really, really struggled. Points per game went down to 23. Field goal percentage went down about 2 percentage points. His three-point percentage struggled, going down from 35 to 30. And his free throw numbers also struggled a little bit. I'll tell you this about Bradley Beal and Damian Lillard for that reason. Their loyalty is impressive. I mean, I'm not sure if they're married, if they have girlfriends, but if they do, their significant others are lucky people because these are really loyal guys who have stayed true to the teams that drafted them. With Damian Lillard, it's the Portland Trailblazers. With Bradley Beal, it's the Washington Wizards. As a fan of the NBA and as somebody who watches NBA games on a night-in, night-out basis, I want to see the great players play with really good teams on the biggest of stages, and we've been robbed of that with Bradley Beal and Dame to a certain degree because they've been loyal to their franchises, which is awesome, but at the same time, I want to see these guys go to teams where they can make deep runs into the playoffs because I want to see how they play in pressure-cooking environments. If Beal does go back to Washington and he secures the bag, I'm still not ruling out maybe a trade in the future. This guy's still in his prime in his late 20s, and he is indeed a very, very special talent. If you're subscribed to us here at Chat Sports, I want you to let me know by just typing chat in the comments section. For those of you who are subscribed, man, you must be feeling alive as we are approaching 300,000 subscribers. To be exact, up to this point, 234,000 subscribers here at Chat Sports, not including everybody who is subscribed to our team channels, but our NBA coverage really about to get ramped up during the NBA draft and NBA free agency. This will be your one-stop shop for all of the best NBA video coverage on the entire internet. So just get ahead of the game, get ahead of the ball, and subscribe to us now if you haven't already done so by hitting that red subscribe button down below or go to youtube.com/chatsportstv. Is there drama in Brooklyn? Well, anytime Kyrie Irving is on your team, the answer to that question is yes. But could Kyrie Irving be leaving? Potentially. This coming from Christian Winfield of the New York Post. So she got a tip last year that James Harden would leave Brooklyn. That tip ended up ringing true because James Harden forced his way out of his second destination over the span of 2 years. She is now reporting that Kyrie Irving could be next. And if that happens, could Kevin Durant then force a trade at some point after signing a contract extension only last summer? We know by now player empowerment at the NBA level is certainly real, and Kevin Durant is so good and so powerful that he could force his way out of Brooklyn. Winfield also reporting that Durant and the Nets have not spoken since the end of the season when they got dusted by the Boston Celtics and swept away. New York Post on the Nets. In layman's terms, if Irving leaves the Nets, it wouldn't be a surprise if Durant becomes frustrated with the organization's ability to put championship pieces around him. They failed to do so at the beginning of last year with none of their top offseason acquisitions, James Johnson, DeAndre Bembry, or Javon Carter finishing the year in Brooklyn. This is why the Nets' championship hopes hinge on an amicable solution with Kyrie Irving, whose personal decision not to get vaccinated and unpredictable injury history have left the Nets hesitant and now, according to a source familiar with the Nets' thought process, outright unwilling to give him a long-term contract extension. And we know that Kyrie Irving is a pretty sensitive dude, right? If the Brooklyn Nets don't show that they want him, that they value his services, maybe he just decides to hit free agency and go elsewhere and say, KD, I'm sorry, I tried. Now, KD, when you look back on it, him leaving the Golden State Warriors is an all-time bad business move. He had everything that he wanted with the Golden State Warriors, a great culture that is conducive to winning championships, a great coach in Steve Kerr, who was a great executive with the Phoenix Suns, a great player with the Chicago Bulls and San Antonio Spurs, where he won multiple championships and has turned out to be an excellent coach. You're playing with the most selfless superstar in the history of basketball in Steph Curry, and you have the best defensive player in the NBA on your team as well in Draymond Green and a healthy Klay Thompson, and they draft and develop better than anybody, led by Bob Myers, who's one of the best basketball executives. You had everything you wanted from a basketball perspective with the Golden State Warriors, and you decide to leave for the unknown of the Brooklyn Nets with the unknown of Kyrie Irving, who was never accountable for a fan base that finished last in local TV ratings. KD leaving Golden State, for Brooklyn, an all-time bad business move, and one that we're going to look back on and say, you know what? You cost yourself some championships leaving the Golden State Warriors for the Brooklyn Nets, because 2 years, 2 playoff no-shows for Brooklyn in terms of making a deep playoff run, that ain't going to cut it. Not at all. Will Durant finish his contract in Brooklyn? He signed that contract extension last summer with the expectation that Kyrie would as well, and James Harden. Harden's already out. He's fat, he's old, he's slow, and he's aging, so maybe that worked out well. And Kyrie Irving, he could be next. Y for yes, N for no. Let me know in the comment section. Appreciate all of you for rocking and rolling with us.